And for more on the race for the White House, here with us is Republican Congressman from Georgia, Dr. Rich McCormick. Doctor, welcome.
Good to be with you today. Thank you.
Of course. So you've endorsed former President Trump. A lot of news coverage this week focused on who he endorsed, just because we were talking about North Carolina. Let me stick with that for a second, and then we will move on to the great state of Georgia. But I want to talk about Mark Robinson. Should Trump rescind his support, his endorsement, and now focus on his own campaign in that crucial state?
I don't give advice to the president. I don't give advice to other people unless it's solicited. These are hard things that happen. Sometimes we don't know everything about details we endorse. Sometimes you get endorsed by people that do nefarious things that come out later. So this is a game of politics. I get it. But I don't give advice on those things.
All right, let's move on to the vice president. Harris is keeping reproductive rights front and center of her campaign. She did so in your state yesterday. You're not only a politician, and I want to mention this to the people watching, you're also an emergency room physician. What should Trump and Republicans say to gain a better foothold on this very topic, Congressman?
Well, first of all, realize it is a state issue. It's not a federal issue. The Supreme Court has ruled on this. Secondly, this is a distraction from the other things that the Democrats are losing on, such as border, crime, debt, energy, and education. Now, if you want to talk about abortion, what the vice president is eliciting is an emotional response to basically a lie, in my opinion. Now, I've looked at the cases. I don't know all the details. But when you talk about abortifactive measures that we take in the ER or any other hospital setting, we never, ever deny a woman access to an abortion in the efforts to save her life, ever. If it takes you 20 hours to become septic in a hospital, you've not done your job well. I'm sure they lost that medical case legally. You don't ever have to worry about being sued. If the baby is in demise, in other words, the heartbeat has already stopped, there's not even an application of the law. And that's my understanding of this case particularly, is they waited too long to do the DNC. The baby wasn't going to make it. The mother was in distress. They should have done the DNC a lot sooner. It's their fault, but it has nothing to do with the law.
Thank you for the context of those two women dying in the Peach State. Going back to my question, what do you think Trump and his campaign should do to get a foothold in your state when it comes to reproductive rights?
Yeah, when it comes to reproductive rights, we just tell the truth. It is a state's issue. It is a heartbeat. If you believe that once the heartbeat starts, that is life, and once it stops, it is death. That's how we usually define life and death in the medical community anyways. This is going to be decided on each local ballot as a state. We can't affect it at the federal level. It's not going to be a constitutional amendment. But you, of course, could make cases for Supreme Court justices. But I think we need to have an honest opinion about other things that matter as well. And I think that's where the president should focus, because the border is still a big deal. Just because Harris flip-flopped on those issues of energy, whether it be fracking or the border or crime or anything else, those things need to be called out, and that should be his focus.
We were excited to have you for so many reasons. One of them, the big news that came out of the Peach State yesterday from the election board. They approved on Friday a new rule requiring hand counting of ballots. I am curious here, sir. Do you agree with this measure? Do you see this standing as we go into November?
So I had to look into it. I called Janelle King, who's one of the voting members of that board, just to find out what the details are. From what I understand, it is a non-binding recommendation that each precinct at the end of the night, on election night, counts those out so that you know the number once it comes out of the bin, because you know we have Dominion and the vote goes into a bin. But some people in the past have refused to put it in the bin because they couldn't take a picture of it, or whatever reason they walk out. Now there's a conspiracy since the number in the bin didn't match the number that were handed over. Each precinct averages about 300 votes per night. And so it would be basically just a few minutes to count those out and then hand them over just to make sure the number in the bin matches the number they've counted and the people that came in, so that there's no conspiracy theory about how many votes were produced.
There are some people who are criticizing, saying this will cause human error. It's going to cost an extra $1.5 million to staff so many more people. But you think so far this is the right call, considering what we've seen in past elections?
So from what I understand, it doesn't take more people at the end of the night to stay and count for a few more minutes. I mean, as you know, we've had a lot of egregious errors in the past. We want to make sure that we're not going to do something that's illegal or without accountability. And so it doesn't seem like it's a big deal. I'm looking into it further. And of course, it's non-binding and it doesn't need to be applied if the Secretary of State doesn't want it applied.
You have over 60,000 blue-collar workers in your district. We've seen the election impact of this voter group specifically. What do your blue-collar constituents want to hear about 50 days into the election?
Yeah, I think they want to hear that the border is going to be closed down, that you had 15 million people come into this country illegally. They're not undocumented migrants. They're well-documented migrants because we sent down double the border agents down just to process them to our country. They can't work. They can't pay taxes. They consume. That's about almost 20 congressional districts full of people who are consuming our tax dollars. Is that where we want it to go? Do we know who they are? Of course not. They don't even have good documentation. We don't even know that the children who are being brought over by the parents, sometimes single parents, even belong to them. When we used to test for it, 9% of those children didn't belong to the people they're coming with. This is child trafficking. 70% of the women coming across the border have been raped multiple times. If you look at crime, and especially in the Democrats' eyes, they don't prosecute. You can walk out of stores with money. If you look at debt, they don't care about debt. They don't care about our currency. They don't care about the future of America and what we have to be responsible for. They don't want cheap, affordable energy resources. They believe in a religion rather than a science of climatology. And I've studied it extensively. And I think when it comes to education and education choice, those are winning issues for the blue-collar workers. If you look at what Youngkin won on, what DeSantis won his first election on, what the Dallas mayor switched over on, Misha Mater, a local politician, became a Republican because of this issue. And she is the representative for the AUC in Atlanta, the minority university system.
Georgia Congressman Rich McCormick, we appreciate you waking up with us this Saturday.